An underwater drone just reached the wreck of HMS Hood, and what it found stunned researchers. Twisted steel, melted armor, and evidence of a catastrophic internal fire. This wasn't just a war grave, it was a warning. The truth of what happened in 1941, a far more terrifying than we were told. The descent into darkness, RO5, reaches HMS Hood. Over 9,300 feet below the surface of the Denmark Strait, in water just above freezing, a robotic underwater drone moved through total darkness. Its lights pierced the black silence, and then, out of the deep, a shape emerged. Huge, twisted, upside down. The wreck of HMS Hood. Even after more than 60 years, parts of her gray paint still clung to the steel. She wasn't a myth anymore. She was real and broken. Once the most powerful warship in the world, HMS Hood had symbolized British naval pride. She was long, sleek, and heavily armed, but now she lay on the seabed, inverted, torn apart, silent. What hit hardest wasn't just the sight, it was the truth beneath it. For decades, historians and naval officers had relied on assumptions, but the drone changed that. It showed physical evidence, wreckage that didn't match the old explanations. A legend had just become a crime scene, and when researchers saw the damage, one thing became clear. The story we were told doesn't match what really happened. What the official story said, luck in German gunnery. The public story was simple, clean even. On May 24, 1941, HMS Hood met the German battleship Bismarck and heavy cruiser Prinsenhagen in the Battle of the Denmark Strait. Just 3 minutes after opening fire, Hood was hit, exploded, and sank. 1,415 men died. Only 3 survived. British naval inquiries blamed it on bad luck and Bismarck's firepower. The story said a lucky German shell struck the ammunition magazine, and that was that. No one questioned it. Hood's destruction was quick, brutal, and accepted. For over half a century, this explanation was taught in history books, repeated in documentaries, and passed down through naval tradition. The story became fixed. Bismarck fired, Hood exploded, end of story. But what the ROV found on the ocean floor tells a different tale, one that doesn't align with luck or a single shell. And now we move from the legend to the wreckage and what it finally reveals. ROV revelations. Evidence doesn't match the story. The drone's footage changed everything. The first anomaly, the missing starboard torpedo bulge. A massive section of the hull simply gone. Not damaged, gone. It wasn't consistent with external shell fire. Then came the blown-out bow section, where steel plating was peeled outward, not inward. That suggested pressure from inside the ship, not a strike from outside. The rudder was locked hard to port, indicating a turn in progress, even though official reports claimed Hood never changed course. And then there was the midsection, lying completely inverted, not just destroyed, but rearranged by force. The entire wreck spoke in silence, and what it said didn't line up with history. It looks like a series of internal failures, said marine forensic analyst Dr. Olivia Hart. Not just one shell, but something cascading from within. The ROV didn't find closure. It found contradiction, and the deeper they looked, the more the design itself came into question. A flawed design, built for the wrong war. HMS Hood was a warship born from the aftermath of Jutland, 1916, a battle that showed just how vulnerable battlecruisers could be. At Jutland, 3 British ships exploded after shells reached their ammunition stores. The lesson? Heavier deck armor was essential, but that lesson was ignored. Hood's designers added 5,000 tons of extra armor, but most of it went to the sides, not the deck. She was still vulnerable to plunging fire, shells falling from high angles at long range, exactly what happened in 1941. Hood wasn't built for World War II. She was built for a war long past. Her concept prioritized speed over protection, assuming she could outrun trouble instead of withstanding it. But against Bismarck, that gamble failed. Everyone saw her as invincible, said naval historian Lieutenant Colonel Graham Steele. But the truth is, she was a compromise, and compromises sink. The tragedy wasn't just a lucky hit, It was the result of design flaws made decades earlier, flaws the sea finally exposed. Scheduled refit, a life jacket never added. By early 1941, HMS Hood was worn out. Nearly 21 years of hard service had taken their toll. The ship was due for a full modernization, upgrades that could have changed everything. Plans had already been drawn up: thicker deck armor, updated fire control systems, new anti-aircraft weapons, and a complete engine overhaul. The work was scheduled, the materials were allocated, the transformation was coming. But war got in the way. With Hitler's navy on the move, the British Admiralty made a fatal choice: delay the refit. Hood would stay operational, even if she was no longer fit for the battle she was sent into. Outdated, overburdened, and under-armored, she was sent back to sea to face modern enemies with World War I defenses. Publicly, she was still seen as a floating fortress, a steel leviathan that represented national pride. But within the halls of the Admiralty, officials knew better. Internal memos show concerns about her deck vulnerability, her ammunition safety, and her aging propulsion systems. The ship's magazines, especially, were recognized as dangerously exposed to plunging fire. And yet, nothing was done. The war's urgency demanded appearances over upgrades. There's a quiet guilt in the archives, noted naval analyst Dr. Elaine Corr. They knew she was vulnerable. They just didn't think she'd be the one to fall. And then, of course, she did. Just weeks before her scheduled overhaul, HMS Hood was destroyed in under 3 minutes. Her refit was written, approved, delayed, and in the end, never executed. So the question lingers: would the refit have saved her? We can't know for certain, but the upgrades would have directly addressed the weaknesses exposed during the Battle of the Denmark Strait. Thicker deck armor could have withstood long-range plunging fire. A modern fire control system might have helped identify threats faster. Reinforced bulkheads might have limited internal fire spread. Instead, Hood was forced to fight a future war with yesterday's armor. And it cost her everything. The refit wasn't just a technical footnote. It was the lost opportunity that haunts every frame of wreck footage. Because buried in those cold, twisted beams is the clearest truth of all. She wasn't doomed by battle. She was doomed by delay. Denmark Strait, battle plan meets reality. At 5:52 a.m. on May 24, 1941, the Battle of the Denmark Strait began, and with it, the countdown to HMS Hood's destruction. Vice Admiral Lancelot Holland aboard Hood knew the risks. His ship's deck armor couldn't withstand high-angle fire from Bismarck's 15-inch guns. So his plan was to close the distance fast, turn the engagement into a broadside fight, and reduce the enemy's ability to land plunging hits. But the sea doesn't follow plans. In the opening minutes, Hood and Prince of Wales misidentified their targets. Instead of focusing on Bismarck, they fired at Prince Eugen, the German heavy cruiser. That mistake cost them precious minutes. Minutes that allowed Bismarck to lock in range and deliver her devastating fifth salvo. At approximately 16,500 yards, a shell from Bismarck arced downward and struck Hood's deck, likely just forward of the mainmast. The shell penetrated the thin armor, passed into the heart of the ship, and hit either a 6-inch magazine or the aft cordite storage. In an instant, 112 tons of explosive cordite ignited. The result was apocalyptic. A single flash, no time to signal, no time to brace, just a blinding eruption, and then silence. The ship split in two and was gone in under 3 minutes. Physics doesn't care about glory, said war historian Marcus Keeley. It cares about velocity, angle, and armor thickness. The truth is harsh. Hood was destroyed not just by a lucky hit, but by a perfect storm of vulnerabilities. An outdated armor scheme, delayed upgrades, a flawed engagement plan, and a modern enemy that was ready to exploit every mistake. Even the best leadership couldn't overcome those odds. Vice Admiral Holland died with his ship, and with him, over 1,400 men. The youngest was just 16 years old, the oldest 52. Their loss was immediate, total, and devastating. For years, the event was called bad luck. But viewed through the lens of the ROV footage and battle reconstruction, it becomes clear it wasn't bad luck. It was inevitability. And now, with the wreck on record and the evidence in hand, that story must be told for what it really was. Not a fluke, but a failure of foresight. But survivor testimony versus official record. Only 3 men survived the destruction of HMS Hood. Of them, Ted Briggs, then just 21, would become the most vocal and the most unsettling witness to what really happened to him that morning. His memories, long seen as anecdotal, now aligned disturbingly well with what the ROV revealed. Briggs was stationed near the compass platform when the fatal explosion hit. He recalled seeing a brilliant flash, not hearing a blast, but seeing a blinding sheet of flame erupt upward through the ship's center. "It wasn't a noise," he said later. "It was like the air itself just exploded." His account described fire erupting from below, traveling up through the decks in an instant, consistent with a magazine detonation, but not from a direct hit. Instead, it suggested internal fire had already reached the cordite stores. He also reported seeing ready-use ammunition, smaller shells stored for immediate use, ignite after earlier hits. These weren't just dramatic memories, they were detailed observations. And the ROV footage matched them. The damage pattern showed a chain reaction, not a single point of impact. Fire appears to have started forward, spread rapidly downward, then detonated multiple magazines nearly at once. Hood didn't just explode, she collapsed from within. The official story framed her destruction as the result of one lucky German shell, but Briggs's testimony, supported now by physical evidence, paints a more complex picture, an internal fire sequence, possibly sparked by earlier hits or structural weaknesses, made worse by decades-old design flaws. Briggs also noted the ship had started turning, backing the ROV discovery that the rudder was locked port, and that no alarm was ever sounded. There was simply no time, no warnings, just fire, flash, and then cold water. The testimony of one man now holds new weight. His words, once treated as memory, are now supported by metal, damage, and data. It's no longer just his story, it's the ship's story. And that story moves us toward an even deeper cause. Not just what exploded, but how it spread. Not chance. A chain reaction fueled by fire, design, and fate. Forensic evidence. Fire, fuel, and internal spread. The ROV's high-definition footage revealed something darker than a single shell hit, a terrifying chain reaction from within. The missing starboard torpedo bulge wasn't cleanly blown off. It was melted, twisted, and peeled, suggesting an intense internal fire, not an external blast. Investigators believe the fire began forward, then swept down through fuel-rich compartments, creating a furnace effect. With tanks full of fuel oil, any breach would have fed the flames, building pressure and heat. The result? A literal fire tunnel, drawing oxygen and forcing flame toward the magazines. The sequence appears to be initial hit, fire, fuel ignition, overpressure, detonation. Scorch marks and warped steel confirm this. Beams bent outward, deck plates split open, some metals showed color gradients from superheating, the kind only extreme internal temperatures could cause. Worse still, signs of secondary explosions were everywhere. Not one blast, but many. Ammunition lockers, fuel reservoirs, even boiler casings all erupted in rapid succession. Commander Julian Trask put it bluntly, this wasn't bad luck, it was combustion engineering. Unintentional, but lethal. In the end, HMS Hood became her own destroyer, undone not by a single shot, but by fire, fuel, and flaws buried deep in her design. Bismarck versus Hood, design differences exposed. The Battle of the Denmark Strait wasn't just a clash of warships. It was a collision between two eras of naval design, and HMS Hood was outmatched before the first shot was fired. Bismarck, launched in 1940, was built with modern warfare in mind. Thick armor, compartmentalized systems, advanced fire suppression. Her deck and belt were shielded against plunging shells. Hood, launched in 1920, had just 3 inches of deck armor over her magazines, dangerously thin by World War II standards. Her protection reflected an older doctrine, speed over survivability. When Bismarck fired her 5th salvo, Hood's fate was sealed. The shell struck from high altitude, precisely where she was weakest, and within 3 minutes, she was gone. The ROV footage confirmed this imbalance. Bismarck, though damaged, stayed afloat for over 48 hours. Hood didn't survive 180 seconds. This was old doctrine versus new war, said historian Elise Markham. And old doctrine lost. Hood wasn't just unlucky, she was outdated. A ship built for yesterday's battles, sent into tomorrow's war. Her wreck now lies twisted on the ocean floor, not just as evidence of destruction, but of decisions made decades earlier that finally caught up with her. Legacy and truth, what the wreck reveals. For over 60 years, the sinking of HMS Hood was explained away as bad luck. A single German shell that struck just right. It was a clean, tragic story. But now, thanks to ROV footage over 9,000 feet deep, that version no longer holds. What researchers saw wasn't random destruction. It was a wreck that told a layered story of outdated armor, canceled upgrades, internal fires, and cascading explosions. Every twisted beam pointed to design flaws, strategic missteps, and decisions made too late. The Admiralty had known her weaknesses. They delayed her refit. They sent her into battle unprepared. And when she was lost, they buried the truth beneath the comfort of myth. Now, the wreck lies inverted, silent, but speaking louder than ever. Hood isn't just a war grave. She's a cautionary tale, a reminder that prestige cannot replace preparation, and that physics always wins. 1,415 men died on that ship. They deserve more than legend. They deserve truth. Because HMS Hood didn't simply sink. She was failed. And in telling her full story, we finally begin to honor what was truly lost. Not just a ship, but a lesson we should never forget. The wreckage tells a story no report ever could. HMS Hood didn't just explode. She collapsed from the inside, betrayed by design flaws and ignored warnings. The drone didn't find closure. It found the truth. And that truth rewrites history. Because what sank with Hood wasn't just a ship, it was trust.